So good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to our webinar today on strategies for teaching digital strategy and international business. This is the second webinar in our spring series from the Academy of Management International Management Division's Teaching Committee's seminars on different aspects of teaching international business. We are very lucky today to have two experts in this area to try to help us understand this new and modern field a little bit better. We'll be joined by Vinod Jain, who is an expert in global and digital strategy and an award-winning professor, former Fulbright scholar, and author of the MBA textbook, Global Strategy. His most recent project is working on a strategy book, Global Meets Digital, Global Strategy for Digital Business, Digital Strategy for Global Business. He received his PhD at the University of Maryland, where he also worked for 7 years, also founding the cyber there, and then went on to work at a number of other institutions, such as Rutgers and University of Nottingham Business School, China. We will also be joined by Sali Lee, who's professor of international business at University of South Carolina. His research is focused on internationalization of digital platforms, and his research has been published in a variety of leading journals, including SMJ, JIBS, Journal of Management, and Journal of Business Venturing. Among other awards, he's received the Lazardus Award from the Journal of Business Venturing for the best paper of the year. And he's written a number of cases about global digital strategy, one of which he'll be talking about later today. Our seminar is going to progress such that Vinod will start by providing a 30-minute overview of digital international strategy. And after that, we will have about 15 minutes where each Vinod and Sally will present a case about digital international strategy. And then there will be about 15 minutes for question and answer. During the webinar, please feel free to write in chat any questions you may have, and the one of our presenters who is not talking will try their best to answer your questions then. At the end of the webinar, during the Q&A period, you can ask your questions in the chat, and also it will be possible to have you unmuted. If you would like to, you can raise your virtual hand, and we will have a little more interactive dialogue via unmuting you to ask your question orally. I think I did not mention that my name is Carl Fay. For those who are not met, I'm chair of the Academy of Management's International Management Division's Teaching Committee, and also professor at Aalto University School of Business in Helsinki, Finland. Finally, I'd like to mention that I do apologize for some colleagues from Europe, that it appears we had a global mix-up of time changes, where Europe has stayed in one time zone while North America has moved forward. Thus, I'm sorry that a few people might be joining a little bit late as a result of that, as there was some mix-up in advertising of times for Europe. Without further ado, I would like to just end by mentioning that we will have two other webinars this spring, one on April 20th, which will focus on the future of case teaching in online and hybrid mode, which will be led by Andreas Schotter from Ivy Business School. And also we will have another webinar on May 19th by Iris Bordeaux of Bentley, which is going to focus, I'm sorry, that's May 17th, not May 19th, which is going to focus on teaching cultural general versus culture specific. We'll be sending announcements about those through the AOM and AIB listservs at a later date. Without further ado, then, I turn over to Vinod for an overview of the basics of international digital strategy, something I'm sure will be useful for all of us. Vinod, over to you.
Thank you, Carl. Thank you very much for inviting me. It's really a pleasure to be speaking to my colleagues from different places. Let me try to share my screen first. Okay, this is what I'm going to be talking about. The focus of the seminar is internationalization of digital businesses and why we must talk about it in regular international business courses. So in order to talk about it, I will first speak about the economics of digital businesses and why the economics and strategy of digital businesses are different from those of physical businesses. And what is digital strategy? And we have two case studies. I'll present a case study on a purely digital business, globalization of Spotify. And Professor Sally Lee will present a really interesting case study on Shine, a Chinese company involved in e-commerce. Khan has already introduced me, so I don't need to say much about me. The only thing I will say is, as far as my main areas are strategy and international business, but as far as digital business is concerned, I've often flirted with this for over 30 years now. Even ran an international business, a global digital business twice, once quite successfully and once very unsuccessfully. So both of them were great learning experiences. I'm also working on a book which will be published later this year called Global Meets Digital, Global Strategy for Digital Businesses, Digital Strategy for Global Businesses. So why include a digital strategy in international business courses? Well, we all know that the trade has declined. Trade in physical goods and services has been declining lately. As the left chart from the Peterson Institute of International Economics, which shows a decline of trade in physical goods. Shows the trade openness index, which is exports plus imports divided by GDP. But this is only part of the story. Globalization seems to have entered a new phase over the last several years with cross-border data flows. This is a chart from a McKinsey and Company study, major study in 2014. And towards the end of the presentation, I have a link to the study report. Notice the two charts, the left side and the right side. These are digital flows between different countries or different regions. The digital flows in 2005 were about 4.7 terabytes. And 2014, 10 years later, 211 terabytes per second, which is 45 times larger. So in my view, that is really the story of globalization. It has entered a new era. Trade in physical goods still continues, though at a slightly lower tempo, but it's been replaced more than adequately by trade in digital goods or data flows. So what are cross-border data flows? Now, they are a growing component of the international trade. Now, goods and services purchased and delivered online. These are digital goods like software, education, computing, consulting, and any other software goods and services you can visualize. And of course, a lot of content and information are shared online. And these data I showed you are from the McKinsey and Company study on digital globalization, a new era of global flows. And here's a link also. So according to McKinsey, which is a very, very respectable consulting firm, the data flows accounted for $2.8 trillion of global GDP in 2014. Regrettably, they have not updated this, but I know this would be much, much larger by now. A quick survey of globalization in 20th century versus 21st century. We all know these things. Tangible flows of physical goods. In the 21st century, there are intangible flows of data and knowledge. Flows mainly between larger economies versus greater participation from emerging economies. More labor and capital intensive flows in the 20th century, currently more knowledge intensive flows, and so on. In fact, Cambridge University had just come out with a study, actually a huge book, 900 pages, talking about knowledge flows and trade. Anyway, I'm not going to read it all. These are all almost self-evident to everyone today. What is not self-evident, or what is not generally known, there are three kinds of products and services today: physical, digital, and physical and digital. The latter two, digital and physical and digital, are growing at an incredible rate of growth. So here's the intersection between the two, physical and digital. Those are known as smart machines, intelligent machines, also called the Internet of Things. To give you an example, your iPhone or your smartphone is an IoT device. These are physical things or physical products which have digital technologies embedded into them, such as software and sensors, and they're connected to the internet so that one could exchange data from one digital machine to another digital machine, from one IoT device to another IoT device. I mean, imagine how many services you can access just through your smartphone. Then just because it's an Internet of Things device, IoT device. And the point that I'm trying to make is for 25 years, I taught strategy and global business, largely about physical goods and services. We hardly ever talked about digital and rarely about physical and digital or smart machines. Now is the time that we need to talk also about digital goods and physical and digital goods and services. And the reason that I'm emphasizing that is that economics and strategy of physical and digital goods are different from each other. Here are some characteristics of physical goods. Positive marginal cost. Anything that you make physical good, I mean, like a glass of water, an iPhone, not an iPhone, that's of course a different kind of good. These are marginal cost is non-zero. I mean, because they require materials and labor and machinery and all of that. So to make an additional product, it's a costly affair. They are rivalrous. In other words, if I'm using a pen, you cannot use it at the same time. This is an economic concept of rivalry. Physical goods can only be used by one individual or one group at a time. And there are diminishing returns to scale. As you add more and more resources, the returns get consecutive less and less. And there is scarcity of resources, scarcity of finished goods. There's a limit to each of those items, each of those physical goods that one has available to them. The case for digital goods is quite reverse. They have zero or nearly zero marginal cost. Think of a digital good like Microsoft Office 365 software. It probably cost Microsoft billions of dollars over a number of years to develop the software and bring it to its current state. How much does it cost them to sell you another copy of Microsoft Office 365? You probably can buy it for about $400. Of course, academic prices are lower from Microsoft.com or from Best Buy or dozens of other sources. How much does it cost to Microsoft to produce that extra copy? Nearly zero. Once they've invested in the designing the product, the marginal cost of producing another item is really very, very little. There's non-rivalry. In other words, any number of people, in fact, millions of them can use the same software, can use the same digital product. Because marginal cost of producing an additional good is zero or nearly zero. In fact, not just of producing, but also of distributing, because these are distributed over the internet. The increasing returns to scale, called network effects, and we'll talk about network effects. Not diminishing, but increasing returns to scale. And there's no scarcity, inexhaustible supply of digital goods. And quality did not deteriorate as you produce more and more of the same digital good. And one more characteristic, they are highly customizable. A digital good like software or a lesson plan, online lesson plan, they're highly customizable. In other words, oftentimes it probably just needs modifying a few lines of code, but not always. Even physical goods are customizable, but they are a lot more difficult and a lot more costly. So I mentioned network effects. Network effects are characteristic of digital goods. As the number of users of a product increases, the value of the product to its users increases exponentially. Think of a fax machine. Let's say a fax machine is currently invented, newly invented, and I purchase one. It's practically useless because I can't use it. I can use it, but there's nobody to send the fax to. As more and more people purchase a fax machine, the value of the fax machine to me goes up exponentially. In fact, that is true for all network products, products connected to a network. The fax machine is connected to the telecommunications network. Products connected to the internet network, again, have the same characteristic. So network effects are of two kinds, direct and indirect. A business benefits from direct network effects when users of its product benefit from the existence of other users of the network. When we later talk about the example of Spotify, you will see if I have subscription to Spotify, I benefit from having my friends and others having subscription to Spotify, because we can share music together, we can share playlists together. Indirect network effects arise in case of two-sided or multi-sided markets, where the increase in the number of users on one side benefits from the users, increase in the number of users on the other side. Coming back to Spotify, they have two sets of users. One are the listeners, the other are the artists. If you increase the number of artists, more listeners would be attracted to Spotify. And as more listeners are attracted to Spotify, more artists would want to join. So that's the indirect network effect. It's a very powerful network effect. And also talked about Internet of Things. Goods that are physical and digital and connected to the internet, so that they may exchange data with each other over the internet. According to a more formal definition by oracle.com, it's the network of physical objects known as things in their language, that are embedded with sensors and software and other technologies for the purpose of connecting and exchanging data with other devices and systems over the internet. And later on, we'll see other examples of Internet of Things, many examples of Internet of Things, not just the smartphone. So looking at the economic characteristics of physical goods, digital goods, and Internet of Things. Notice that the 5 characteristics I mentioned are all present in digital goods and none in physical goods. IoT devices also show network effects and some customizability, not as much as digital goods, but they have customizability. I want to quickly define 3 terms which are sometimes used interchangeably, incorrectly, in my opinion: digitization, digitalization, and digital transformation. Digitization is essentially converting analog source into a digital source. Converting, maybe if you got a photograph, printed photograph, you can get it digitized. So that would be digitization. You got a ledger of data, you get it converted into computer readable file. That is digitization. This is something used to be known as computerization in an earlier era. And digitalization is the process of moving to digital business. Not just digitized things, but also processes. Digitization enables a company to have processes digitalized. And there is oftentimes a confusion between the two, but to me, it's a very clear distinction. Digitalization is the process of moving to digital business, involves transforming a business process using digital technologies. It makes processes easier and perform and more efficient. And then there's digital transformation, and all of these are prerequisites to employing digital strategy in a business. So the digital businesses and digitalization, they're already present in a digital business. If you have a legacy business of physical goods and services, digitalization is essential in order to use digital strategy. Digitalization of the company's internal systems, processes, external relationships is the process of moving from analog to digital business. It requires the use of technologies like artificial intelligence, machine learning, cloud computing, 3D, robotics, and so on. You need a specific culture and a lot of highly qualified talent in the process of digital transformation. To me, this is still not strategy. This is IT business. All of this is done by information technology people. And digital transformation is a journey, not a destination in a business. You continue to improve it over time. Coming to strategy. So strategy is concerned with how companies create and capture value and how they establish and sustain competitive advantage. How is digital strategy different? Well, actually, digital strategy is strategy itself. Same thing. Value creation, value capture, competitive advantage. But how they do it that's what makes it digital strategy. They do it through the adoption of digital technologies throughout the organization in different functions and using digital business models. So value creation and value capture By the way, much of what I'm talking about is from my book, which I'm currently writing. It will be available later this year. Anyway, I may not spend too much time on this value creation and value capture. You will have access to it later on. So establishing competitive advantage in digital markets, you do it through technological innovation. You leverage network effects, offer complementary goods and services, scale and scope. In terms of technological innovation, there is software, algorithms. Individuals may design software, algorithms, IoT devices, and so on, but it is the software really which makes things happen in real time. So having a digital product definitely helps you compete in digital markets. Having an Internet of Things device, again, the same thing. And of course, data is a true digital good and has a multiple uses in organizations. Network effects, leveraging network effects. Companies compete in digital markets, having complementary goods and services. I recently purchased a Dell computer. It came with lots of complementary goods and services. For instance, it came with Microsoft software already included in it. The value of the Dell computer is much more because it has all those complementary goods and services. So a digital products company can do better by having complementary goods and services. And digital goods are eminently scalable and scopeable. I mean, look at what Amazon does for all of these platforms. They are digital, and how much they have become, and the scope, how many different kinds of things, businesses they are into. Let's take an example. Apple started with the personal computers. In 2007, they added iPhone. Then they added tablets, Apple Watch, and many accessories. Those they can access, you can access through the smartphone or the Apple Watch. Apple services, just look at the list on the right side. This is the scope, eminently scopeable. A digital product has huge scope, not just scale and scope. So we'll talk about the case study. Globalization of Spotify technologies. I wonder how many of you have subscribed to Spotify to listen to music. I have, but I'm cheap, so I'm looking at the premium subscription. In other words, free. I can freely listen to Spotify music. Well, I don't really listen to a lot of it. So talk about Spotify. It's a digital, born global Swedish company in the online music streaming business. They also now have audiobooks, podcasts, and I believe even video casting. Well, if it's born global, what is globalization about Spotify? Well, all digital businesses are born global. So why do we talk about their globalization? Well, we'll see. Even a global business needs to do things to become truly global. Founded in 2006 and created a legal music streaming platform. It was a new business category that did not exist before. I don't know if you remember Napster. That was a person-to-person file sharing program declared illegal by the courts. and shut down in 2001. Spotify was able to create a business so people could share music, could access music legally. And they created a new business category, and all other music streaming services like Apple Music, Amazon Music, Deezer, and all others, they were latecomers into the business. Spotify currently has a catalog of over 70 million songs and 2.6 million podcasts. It's a two-sided platform, 1.2 million content creators, that's the artists, and 406 million active users, listeners, including 180 paid subscribers as of December 2021. The business models that Spotify uses is a freemium business model. Anyone can subscribe free of cost to Spotify and listen to all their music, create their own playlists, and so on without cost. Except that these, when you're listening to music, there will be often interruptions by advertisements. And you can only listen to live music. Live means in the sense, at one place, you cannot download it for later listening. They have a premium service, which is a subscription. I think it costs like $10 a month. And for students, it's lower. And for families, there's a combined price of $15, $16 for a family, and so on. So these are higher quality streaming, ad-free, and a premium subscriber can download the music on any device for later listening. And of course, the third business model is ad-supported music streaming. In other words, that's also how they make money. Premium subscribers don't pay anything, but the company still gets money because this screen ads while you're listening. Spotify's internationalization and profits. The chart on the left, the green areas is where Spotify was available, like 100 countries, I think, as of February 2021. And at that time, they announced that they would be entering some like 85 more countries soon. The yellow portions are the places where they were going to enter shortly thereafter. Unfortunately, I could not get a more recent data on this. And these data that I'm showing, all the data included in this, unless they are from Spotify, they are from a service called Statista. They do have a freemium model. They provide some basic data free of cost, but there's an expensive subscription model, which I have is like $450 a year, which offers you all kinds of data, and I use it a lot. There's also a corporate subscription, which offers even more information. The one on the right, regrettably, the company has not been profitable, except a couple of quarters in the last few years. I think as of last quarter, they lost 39 million euros. And you see that the green straight line, those are the number of paid subscribers, 180 of them. So why is Spotify not profitable? Obviously, to be running a business like this is very expensive. So where do the profits go? Who captures the profits? Well, the record labels, the companies which have artists with them, or artists, they have their music through record labels. Record labels get the bulk of the money. We'll see about it. This is an interesting chart also from Statista. It shows the relative position of different music streaming companies. Apple Music, the yellow dots on the right shows how many subscribers, paid subscribers they had. I think this is as of early 2021. So Apple Music had 60 paid subscribers. I'm sorry, 60 million. Deezer, which is a French music sharing company, had 7 million globally subscribers. Amazon Music had 55 million. Spotify had 172 million, but we know by now they have 180 million paid subscribers. And what are the other numbers? 100, 185, 200, 312, and so on. If you are an artist and your music plays on Apple Music, if it is played 100 times, if 100 listeners listen to your song, then you get a $1. The payout to the artist is $1. For Amazon, you have to have 200 people listen to your song to earn $1. Spotify, 312 listeners listen to your song, or the same listener listening to the song multiple times. If a song is listened to 312 times, the artist earns $1. And there's a lot of difficulty that Spotify has about it, but we'll see. In fact, 52% of all the revenue that Spotify has goes to the record labels. And record labels are the ones who share that revenue with the artists. Very, very sophisticated software and data that they have, which collects all the payouts to artists and so on. So how Spotify creates value? Remember, it's a strategy, how they create and capture value. Spotify was able to shift consumer behavior from an ownership-based model to an access-based model. Earlier, if you wanted to listen to music, you purchased a CD. I mean, other than on the radio or television, you would purchase a CD, or maybe buy it from iTunes. And some people even illegally copy music from other places. But now anyone can listen to music because all you need is access, anytime, anywhere, which you can access through various devices. Leverages network effects, both direct network effects and indirect network effects. Highly users of technology, software, algorithms, artificial intelligence, machine learning, blockchain, etc. By the way, I know all these technologies as a non-techie. If you wanted to implement any of them, I can't do that. And data, they are huge users of data analytics. I mean, just to give an example, anyone can create a playlist of songs they like to listen to. There is also auto-generated playlists for every individual based on what they listen to usually. And there are curated playlists and so on. Innovation in marketing, advertising, and other functions. And they're also the first to create user-generated and auto-generated playlists. They had a first mover advantage, not only being the first legal music streaming service, they were the first to create auto-generated playlists based on what listeners were listening to. And of course, listener-generated playlists, which they can even share with their friends. To give two examples of the innovation, they were very, very innovative company. Now, in Singapore, Malaysia, and Indonesia, that region get smoke in the summer, certain months of smoke in the summer, quite a bit heavy smoke. So they created a playlist, a tongue-in-the-cheek playlist, Dazed and Confused, which has 60 songs, including Billy Joel's, my favorite song, We Didn't Start the Fire. Smoke Gets in Your Eyes, Breathe Easy, Burning Up, Burn, I See the Fire, an Oxygen Mask, and some 55 other songs. I understand currently there are more than 3 billion playlists, some created by the company, but mostly created by listeners themselves. Another, a more interesting example of the use of billboards in marketing and advertising. They have used billboard advertising quite successfully in major towns. So this was a billboard they used in, I think, Britain. They asked their listeners to create a playlist of songs with the title God is a Man versus God is a Woman. 9 playlists were created in a certain period of time where said God is a man. And woman, 28,000 playlists were created which highlighted that God is a woman. I mean, they were very, very creative people. So we talked about value creation. Let's talk about value capture. How does Spotify capture value? Well, the premium subscriptions, 180 million premium subscribers they have, each paying like $8, $10 a month. That's 90% of their total revenue. Rest of it comes from ads and so on. Ad-supported music, premium subscribers. And they also offer advertising and promotion for companies. For example, Unilever has used Spotify's video takeover ad experience sponsored advertising. Essentially, this was a freemium subscriber could listen to half hour of ad-free music if they also listen to a Unilever ad. And Unilever paid them money for that. And as I mentioned, I think there are currently more than 3 billion playlists that people have created. Who captures value? Listeners, of course. They listen to music anytime, anywhere, free of cost. And of course, those who pay, they even have better quality of music, which they can even download. Anyone can create a personalized playlist, even freemium subscribers. Record labels get 52% of the subscription revenue. And that's, I think, one of the reasons why the company has been in loss. And shareholders, other stakeholders. Briefly, next couple of slides on their global strategy. Spotify has followed a fast second country entry strategy. Unlike, let's say, Deezer from France, which in a short period of time tried to enter like 185 countries in a short period of a couple of years. Spotify enters a country with much thought and does a lot of things before they actually even enter the country. Now, when you are entering 100 countries or any country, localization of your music choices, localization of your marketing, advertising, everything is very, very important. I think this is something you might call a multi-domestic strategy in IB literature. Localization and contextualization of marketing content such as websites. And of course, the 4 Ps of marketing: product, price, place, and promotion. How do you localize the product? How do you localize the price? And so on. For that, they use extreme localization in music choices. For every market, or not necessarily for every country, for every major region, they have a strongly local music catalog. Sometimes they even develop the catalog before entering the market. They partner with local labels and artists in each market, engage local listeners through local social media, and they have localized website for every country with the content and playlists. For instance, for India, they have created playlists like Punjabi 101, Bollywood Butter, Namaste Love. Like that they have for the Arab world, for Australia, for Japan, and so on. Price, of course, based on sort of the cost of living. There's a small differences between the price in all the developed countries, but between developed and emerging markets, there could be major differences. And promotion, of course, highly localized. The other strategy they use for foreign markets is strategic partnerships. They would have a partnership with local record labels. After all, if they want to have music in Hindi in India, they have to have local label Hindi music creators. Local telecom companies who offer bundling telecom and music streaming service. For instance, in the US, they have a partnership with AT&T. In UK and Australia, they have partnership with Vodafone, their local telecom companies. They often have top retailing companies with which they do partnerships. And Samsung is their exclusive music streaming service partner. And other things they do as part of the global strategy, odds and ends, they promote global artists to local audiences and selected local artists to global audiences. Very essential to learn the unique cultural knowledge in each country. A more personalized service experience for listeners, irrespective of wherever they are. And that's all done through data analytics. They maintain multiple revenue streams, R&D to improve user experience, enter new lines of business through M&A. I think that's the last slide. So I've sort of kept to the time. Here are a few citations or references which I have used for this presentation, but the International Management Teaching Committee website is coming up with the digital strategy references. There will be quite a few which would be useful for teaching digital strategy in IB curriculum. And of course, you will hear about that. And I mean, it's right now, actually it's being worked on. Thank you. And if you have any questions, we will try to see if there are questions and answer them. Otherwise, feel free to send me an email if I don't answer your question. or if you don't have enough time to answer any questions. Thank you. On to Professor Sally Lee.
Thanks, Vinod. I really enjoyed the presentation and I learned a lot. Actually, I have my slides as well, but I noticed like maybe we are running a little bit behind the schedule. So, is that like okay, Carl? So for us to have some Q&As and then the together of the some of the stuff I'm going to talk about, because I'm going to share basically a case. So, so what I kind of got inspired by Vinod's presentation is some of the things like really happening around the world, and maybe some questions I just throw out here and for the audience to think about. Can we still use some of the existing frameworks or vocabularies to describe what is happening for Spotify? For example, like Vinod talk about like the very fast way of the entry to different markets, and that's something we should still stick to the existing framework to talk about that, or in terms of like localizations versus standardizations. I mean, there are the classic framework we are using in our IB teaching, but given what is happening with all the born digital, born globals, should we also be considering some other alternatives, strategies instead of like sticking to the existing frameworks? And so that are some of the thoughts I had in my mind. And so I just want to throw out them here and for you guys to think a little bit. So so if I didn't hear back from Carl, and I will just go ahead and briefly go over some of the slides.
Sally, I think you can be a little flexible on the time. I think if we have to go 5 minutes over, so that's fine.
Yeah, but I have to go. Today I have some commitment after like 12:15. So, but thanks, Carl. So the thing, what I'm going to present is quite consistent with Vinod's presentation, and I'm trying to introduce a company called Shein, and just wondering, like, how many of you may have heard about this company before? I don't know if I can create a pool for this. Yeah, I don't think like we have the pool functions. Yeah, so this company is quite amazing, and it's a new company. If you have a maybe teenager daughter at home, maybe you have heard of the brand, and maybe if you haven't heard about that, it's not a big surprise, and because this is really a new company, just started out very recently, and but what they have achieved is quite amazing. So here are some of the numbers they have been achieving recently, and it's one of the fastest growing e-commerce firm in the world, and achieved $10 billion revenue in 2020 over COVID, and grown over 100% over the past 8 years. And there are a lot of teenager girls have this so-called Shein addiction, and has been considered as one of the most valuable startups in the world. So this is just some general background of this Shein, okay? And so if we look at this apparel retailing industry, and this is how fast Shein is growing. And the ice here is the logo of Shein, and you can see since it's starting in 2014-ish, and it has been growing dramatically and in almost exponential way. And so it has been bypassing Lululemon, right? So in year 2019 and 2020, and it's kind of getting closer to Uniqlo, and definitely, you can see there are some declines of sales in Zara due to COVID, but Shein sales is just keep growing because of their unique business model. And so how is Shein different or can achieve such fast growth, right? And if we look at the app or like the websites, actually they are quite similar to what we can see from Amazon or from any other, like people may call like a D2C, direct to customer or consumer type of sites. And But what really makes Shein stand out is its price is irresistible. And it's really had a faster turnover and can iterate their design and provide their products to their customers in a very quick time. So that is really makes Shein stand out. And it has become the top shopping apps on the US app stores recently. So these are some of the things I hope, if we are thinking to leverage on this case and in a class, I think there are two major teaching points we can elaborate. And one is about the business model innovation, and the other is about global value chain management. So let me just go ahead to talk a little bit about that. So Shein is a relatively young company, and this is some of the, they started out called Shein side, and then eventually they became like Shein. And it's really just regular e-commerce, nothing special at the very beginning. But what really make them to make this big transformative change is about their business model innovation. Some people claim they have combined the type of like Apple type of business model and Amazon. So basically they have a very tight control of their value chains, and they also have this ability to delight customers with low prices. So that is the magic to make Shein really successful or very fast fashion. And here is an interesting diagram talking about some of the differentiations among this apparel industry and fashion industry. So these are on the bottom of the diagram, right? This pyramid. There are some brands we are very familiar with, and there are the fast fashion brands, which basically like they can turn over their inventory in 3 weeks, month, and present different designs to their customers, very quick fashion, right? So, and including H&M, Zara, etc., right? And then recently, there's an emergence of this called ultra fast fashions. So instead of utilizing these physical stores, they directly selling their products to their customers, right? Basically, that is a B2C type of business model. And there are some of the UK brands like Fashion Nova, like Boho. And but when we came to the 2020s, right, to the second decade of the new millennium, and then there are really called real-time fast fashion, and that is utilizing this so-called C2B type of model, and the Shein can be a pioneer in this category. So in this case, like how did Shein achieve that? This is kind of interesting diagrams. I didn't draw it. It's actually coming from a blog, from Matthew Brennan. And if you guys can do a quick search, and you can find this article and from the website. And but this is a very good diagram to capture a lot of the key essence, how to make Shein successful. Okay, so the first one is they actually utilizing a lot of the big data and using the data analytics to help them to drive the development of their products. And so there are two sources for them to collect data. One is from the third party. They come from the Google Trend vendors, competitor sites, and then utilizing the information, they can design their products, and then using their integrated supply chain to produce this clothes. And they can utilize this supply chain in a very efficient way, so they can reduce the price and become a low cost competitors. And then they can enhance their user experiences by using the low cost strategy, right? Yeah, and then after that, they can spread like this word of mouth, and then building these referrals, and to keep acquiring new users. And then these new users will also help them to generating the first party data, which will help them to refine their design and to tailor their product to customer preferences. So this is basically just like some of the way they are operating. And this is another diagram from McKinsey, and which is pretty cool to talk about this supply chain 4.0. And if time allows, people can enhance or like elaborate a little bit more on this one. So basically, like we can utilize the big data as a crystal ball, right, to forecast what the users needs. And in the way we can go with C2B type of business model instead of traditional B2C model. So some people talk about like there are some research talking about this, how to manage in global value chain. And I think this 3C framework can be interesting. And so basically, you know, in this global value chain system in the digital era, we have to combine the supply chains. So that is a combination process, you know, to enhance the process integration. At the same time, we definitely need to enhance the collaborations among all the suppliers and also between the suppliers and the focal firm. At the same time, the firm has to be a controller and have a strong control regarding the information flows, regarding the quality, and then together they can develop a system, ecosystem in a sense, and to leverage on the global supply chain to provide superior products to their customers. So again, going back to the earlier point I was trying to make when after Vinod's presentation. So I'm kind of like just throw some questions out, and hopefully like we can have some discussion later on, and regarding some of the traditional frameworks we are talking about in the business, international business or global strategy, right? So standardization versus local responsiveness is traditionally, we think there are some tensions between these two, but look at some of the recent digital firms, right? So some of them actually can use the big data or like, the technology to personalize their products, not like even localized, right? And at the same time, they can utilize their global supply chains functionalities to provide low cost products. So there may be some possibilities to combine this together, and even including 3A strategies. And because of we are, at the current era, at least, we are still like very integrated global system. So this kind of arbitrage opportunities are still available. And then another question we can think about is a born global versus a born digital in terms of the market entry or like related to the entry mode choices. So should we open the discussion a little bit broader, and what type of entry, thinking about like digital firms, they really enter the market if they don't have a physical FDI in the market, right? So I think there will be some interesting discussion points for all our colleagues in international business to think about. And also, it's worth discussing with our students regarding how the practitioners are thinking about these issues. And hopefully we can all getting together to enrich the conversations and making our teaching more relevant to today's business trends. So I will stop here, Carl, and I have a couple of slides, but I think I will stop here for now because I hope like we can have some time for Q&As.
Great, thanks very much. So Vinod, if you can turn on your camera, and we then can have an opportunity for people to ask questions to Sali and Vinod. Who would like to go first? You can either type your questions in the Q&A, or if you'll raise your virtual hand, we can promote you so that you can talk. While we're waiting for some questions, perhaps I can ask the first question, and that is, I wish we could touch briefly on the last point that you've mentioned, Sali. Maybe you each could mention briefly, and Vinod, perhaps you could adjust your camera. It's now sort of gray rather than seeing you. I'm just wondering, what do you think personally, Sali? What model, should we be thinking about when we think about internationalization of digital companies? I mean, is Uppsala model totally obsolete? There are still things that are useful from that. You have something else to put forward. What do you suggest?
Oh, thanks, Carl. I have a couple of slides. As I said, like there are some of the things. I don't think like a Uppsala model is obsolete. This is something like I'd like to, correct the impression if I had some left some impression on that. And there were some research I have been doing on this kind of topic. So we actually found it kind of interesting talking about like a Spotify, talking about like a Jain. Actually, they are not like really the pure born global, because this not started out immediately in every countries, because we have like almost 200 countries in the world, right? So it's not all the digital firms, so they will choose kind of like a universally like to cover all the countries or regions immediately. actually there are interesting paths they are choosing. So they are going to some of the most salient or like, influencing or what we call like a cloud countries. So this more like the KOL, the key, the what do you call like the opinion leaders, right? So basically, like, if you send out a message going to the opinion leaders, and then it will help you spread the message to better leverage on the network effect. So that is what we found. We actually found instead of traditional internationalization models, they are not like taking step by step for sure, but they are also not like instantly becoming available everywhere. So sometimes they go into like European countries, and then like they become a big hit in several countries, and then they kind of using this one as a stepstone to penetrate other countries. So that is, I think, a mixture of this Uber Sala model and this traditional like what people may call like sprinkler systems or sprinkler like analogy. Yeah.
Okay, great. Vinod, do you have anything you would like to add about that in terms of models of internationalization that are appropriate for digital companies?
Well, I've been out of academia for a few years, and I'm not up to date with the research literature. So I would rather keep quiet on that question.
Okay, maybe there's one other thing. We could turn this question a little bit differently. And by the way, if anyone has a question, please do raise your hand or add in chat and we'll immediately go to you. But I'm wondering, Vinod, if we could start with you and then Sally come to you about what can traditional companies learn, about international business from digital companies? Is there something that they can take away? What can a traditional company learn? Vinod?
I mean, this is something on which I have actually worked for my book. The traditional legacy businesses, literally all of them are now trying to become digital companies in a little way or a large way. The case study that I was planning to use earlier would be, which I changed because we wanted to see how digital companies globalize, was Nestle, which is a really traditional company, more than 100 years old, and they have no Internet of Things products. Now they have a couple. I mean, coffee and food products, Kit Kat and so on. They are not digital products. You eat them. But there are a lot of things they can learn. First of all, how to digitalize your business. And things like try to get network effects and so on. These are, I mean, I would say most of the big companies that I know about, and it's medium-sized, they are trying to become digital companies.
Okay, Vinod, let's try to get Sally's response too, as we don't have a whole lot of time. Sally, what do you think on this one? What
Actually,
can,
there's
traditional
interesting
companies
case.
learn?
There's interesting case like about Domino pizza, and I don't know, like Carl, do you have like Domino pizza like in Finland?
Maybe I don't think it's in Finland, but I'm well familiar with it.
Yeah, but like in the US, right, very popular, right? So Domino Pizza was not like a really largest player in the market, but Domino Pizza definitely became #1 in the US market because they utilize digital technology. And actually, there's an interesting case. Domino Pizza is going to Italy. Actually, not is going to, but actually already went to Italy and doing quite well. And so they definitely not leveraging on their recipes, but what they are really having this kind of unique advantage is their digital advancement. So that is something really cool in my opinion. So traditional restaurant firms, they can still utilizing this digital technology and to become internationalized in a different fashion.
Okay, thanks for that good suggestion. Bill Newberry has a question for us that is very relevant for most of us, and that is, what's the #1 piece of advice you would provide faculty aiming to better integrate digital strategies into their IB courses? Sally, can we start with you?
I think like, if I were Vinod, I think like, maybe like we should adopt his book but I think like this is a challenge I think we are facing. And in my classes, I sometimes integrate some part of those into my class discussion. And but it's very hard to take an overhaul approach to change every element in the business discussion about international business, because there are still very a lot of other non-market strategy and the political connections are very important. And so digital definitely become a very important and salient component. But my approach is just maybe piece by piece, and then sometimes engage students to think further and to think about the new challenge in the new world.
Hey, Vinod, how about you?
Yeah. You see how I changed myself. For 25 years, I taught strategy and global business. Traditional way, if you think of capstone strategy courses, I recently looked at the syllabi from 6 top schools for the MBA capstone strategic management course. None of them even had the word digital into them. So my first suggestion is to learn about it. I spent the last 3 years learning, studying on my own, interacting with executives in digital businesses, and conducting some seminars, attending webinars. So learn more about it. And then the specific advice I would give is to maybe devote 1 or 2 weeks in your 13-week semester specifically to digital strategy. Provide them resources, and the International Management Committee would have lots of resources you could select from there. And I think a good way to introduce these ideas is to use even if you don't spend a lot of time teaching digital strategy, is to use cases. And there are some really good cases at Harvard Business School publishing, which refer to digital businesses, D2C framework, B2B framework.
So thanks for that. Then maybe speaking of cases, you could each mention, one of your favorite cases, and especially a case that one could use if the whole course wasn't on, digital international strategy, but if you're just going to have one case in a general IB course, what would that be, Sally?
I think, yes. Now, Jain can be a very interesting one. Like this is a foreign global. Jain was a company from China and now just moved headquarters to Singapore. And but its major consumers are located in Europe and North America. So it's a quite amazing case. And it's not like just pure digital firms. It's touching upon this manufacturing component as well. So I thought this can be very unique for bringing in some of the existing discussions in what we know in the based on manufacturing FDI type of business context into this digital context.
And of course, we have, as Vinod mentioned, now on the Academy of Management International Management Division's teaching resource website, a list of a variety of materials, and I expect that is probably there as well, and that's going to be added to. But Sally, what case clearinghouse is distributing your case?
Oh, actually, by the way, this is like not my case, and I want to clarify because of this days we are really in the digital era, right? So there are a lot of open source informations, and based on the low marginal cost. So this blog is very comprehensive. Like I put some of the references there. You can easily search and find the information there. Yeah, Matthew Brenner and Sir Jain, and I think the blogger did a much better job than me. So. I think like it's open source information, in my opinion. Yeah, you can just
okay. I see, great. And Vinod, how about you? What case would you recommend?
I hate talking about my own book. About half a dozen cases, but no case is more than 3 or 4 pages long. But the real cases at the Harvard Business School Publishing or the Case Clearinghouse, there is a case on General Electric, digitalization of General Electric, which is really a good case. I think Stewart Black wrote that. There is a case on XCMG, which is a Chinese company from Suzhou. Their digitalization, it's by Mark Greven from IMD, really good case. So these are 2 which offhand I can think of, but there are obviously many really good cases, and I'm going to list some at the teaching committee website.
Okay, great. Well, I think our time has expired for today. I would like to thank all of you who've attended, and especially our presenters today, Vinod Jain and Sally Lee. Thank you very much for sharing your expertise with us. And I hope that those listening will be able to join for our future webinars. such as our next webinar that will be on April 20th from 9 to 10:30 a.m. Eastern Time with Andreas Schotter from Ivy talking about the future of case teaching in an online and hybrid mode. So thanks very much for today, and do look at the teaching committee's website. Thanks very much.
Thanks, Carl. Thanks, Vinod.
Thank you very much, Carl and Sally, and thanks to everyone.